A New York Times editorial headline in early September said, "New York public schools are among the most racially segregated in the country. You wouldn't imagine that segregation is still alive today." We'd like to think we are forward-thinking. We pretend segregation has been completely eradicated in every way, when that's not the case when it comes to the New York schools. Although the editorial brings up a good argument for public schools, it leaves out vital pieces of information that may contribute to the main idea. The purpose of this paper is to discuss other issues students face when attending their schools that the editorial didn't cover or cover more thoroughly. The New York Times editorial didn't delve into the students who did manage to make it into the gifted programs, that housing is also makes an impact on mostly the Black and Latino students, and kids in low-income areas tend to be unhealthier than children born to high-income families. This editorial is quoted as writing, "To truly remake the system, the city needs to come up with a comprehensive plan to educate these extremely vulnerable children." A quote from the article says the commission identified 9 school districts across the city where significant racial diversity in the neighborhoods hasn't translated to more integrated schools. City officials say they are strongly encouraging others to adopt integration plans, requiring every district across the city to do so, and setting measurable goals would send a far stronger message. Though the editorial itself did introduce new ideas of how New York would confront these problems, these issues weren't brought to light on a deeper level that I feel should have. In one of the news sources, it said over the past 20 years, there have been a dramatic decline in the number of gifted Black students accepted into specialized schools in New York City. According to the recent data, Black students account for 26.5% of the district population, but only comprise 10% of the total student body in New York City's specialized high schools. There are lots of theories about the pressures Black students face in certain settings. Frameworks include stereotype threat, attitude achievement paradox, opportunity gaps, etc. These issues do not end with K through 12 schooling, but continue into college and often affect gifted Black students' abilities to perform, persist, and graduate. But rethinking gifted and talented programs changing admission practices for selective schools can make the city fairer for tens of thousands of children. Another quote from the New York Times editorial. While Hispanic and Black children make up 41% and 24% respectively of all the kindergarten students, they make up just 10% and 8% of offers to the citywide gifted and talented program, which begins in kindergarten and runs through the 5th grade. It is important to note how the numbers have not changed in the past several years. The New York Times editorial is dated this year, 2019, while the other information is dated a few years prior. During the 2015-16 school year, 5,078 of the roughly 28,000 students who took the entrance exams earned seats at one of the city's elite schools. Of those 5,078 students, 524 identified as either Black or Latino. This Times editorial says the best way to keep students in the system is to improve all the city's schools, but the pursuit of that goal is no substitute for addressing inequality right now. The editorial goes on to say that high schools give admission preferences to students who live in the surrounding neighborhood. The admissions process is citywide. Thousands of students throughout the 5 boroughs travel to attend the school of their choice. Why should it be harder for a student living in the Bronx to be accepted into a high-performing school on the Upper East Side? While the editorial addressed that regardless of where a student lives, they should not be denied an equal opportunity for being considered a candidate for a sought-after high school. But that was as far as the article went towards living arrangements. New York City faces the twin problems of housing segregation and shortage of affordable housing. In 2014, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced the plan, a 10-year worth billions of dollars to build and preserve or plan 200,000 affordable units between 2014 and 2024. However, the plan fails to comply with the Federal Housing Administration because it tends to deny housing to Black and Latino New Yorkers. Times was quoted, "Many experts say a better system would wait until children are significantly older, in middle school, to begin identifying advanced learners using criteria that would draw students from every background." While Times accepts other older children should be the ones tested and not younger ones, it just ends there. They don't explain the repercussions of students in this case, how the number of Black students trickled as they made their way to higher grade levels. In one of my news sources, Black students interviewed highlight a common theme of struggle during high school transition. When in elementary school, they were roughly 83% Black racially diverse, to middle schools, 77.8% racially diverse, to high schools that were 39% racially diverse. The decline took a toll on the participants' academic health, but also opened their eyes to being Black and gifted in their schools. The last factor not mentioned in the Times article is how different food and eating habits can be for wealthy and poor families. Kids in low-income areas tend to be unhealthier because our neighborhoods are surrounded by fast food restaurants and convenience stores, while white and upper income families tend to be healthier because their neighborhoods are typically away from fast food areas and convenience stores. This paper discussing missing bits of information It's not included in the New York Times editorial. I have included parts of the New York Times editorial as well as information from the other 3 sources. This editorial is organized around data with conclusions coming at the end of the article. It is in the best interest of everyone, but most importantly the students, for their local politicians to help make positive changes and to close the gap between races and education levels.